This is Leanne and Dax here for Eat, Play, Love, Live, and we are here to answer your most pressing questions. Thank you so much for asking, and we're going to go ahead and dive on in.
I bet you can't tell which one of us is Leanne and which one's Dax, right? No,
I'm Dax.
It's really. Hello, Leanne. Okay, so that was your voice, by the way.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to dive straight into the group's questions. I think there's some awesome questions that have come up, and I think they're going to be really relevant to a lot of people. I'm just going to pick. We got so many. I mean, it's quite a large thread already, but I'm just going to pick one. And I think first one I want to look at is we've got this great question from Vicky Heath. She said, it's about when we know what to do and see great results from our own clients with the coaching and the training we give them. Why are we not doing it ourselves? Why are we not doing it ourselves?
Yeah.
What do you say?
Well, this is a loaded question. There's a few different, journeys I could go on with this, but I would say in general, this kind of goes in the category of I know what to do, or I know what to do, but I can't get myself to do it. And it's such a common struggle that I hear with the women that I work with and just the women that I interact with online. And, one of the reasons that we tend to know what to do but can't get ourselves to do it is simply that we don't necessarily want to do it. Maybe it's something that's a little bit too strenuous. Maybe it's not realistic or practical for us to sustain longer than in the short run. So that's one way of looking at it, is it's something that we don't necessarily want to sustain, right? Or maybe it's just not practical, for what we want to accomplish when it comes back to that question between, healthy and happy, right? Maybe it works for us and it gets us results, but it doesn't keep us happy in our everyday life. If we have to completely give up everything that we love about our life or the experiences that we most want, our brain is gonna kind of know before we even get started that that's not something that we're gonna want to do long term, and we kind of call it a failure before we even begin. It might not be conscious, but a lot of times our brain just knows, hey, this is not something that I am gonna want to stick to long term. So that's just one way of looking at it.
Yeah, I really like that. I think it's really common. I think there's a lot of people kind of set themselves up in an unwinnable game, right? Because they know that they want the result. They're absolutely, definitely clear, like, this is the result I want. I want to look this way, feel this way, perform this way. I want my body to be like this and all the rest of it. But every single time they approach every time they approach that goal, every time they approach that result, they end up having to do it in a way that compromises the experience that they really want to have. Like, I know I want that body, but I absolutely hate having to do all of these things over here in order to get it. So what's your, she hasn't asked this as a question, but I mean, what's your answer to that? What should we do about that?
Well, I think it kind of comes back to the whole concept of eat, play, love, and live. If you can we know ourselves at this point in time. We know if you told me, or if you recommended something to me, or if I just committed to something, I can kind of use my past experiences and knowing myself, like, will I actually be able to sustain that in 6 weeks, in 6 months from now? And if we get really honest with ourselves, we do know the answer to that. And so, I mean, again, there's this distinction between, getting results and keeping results. But if your goal is to keep results, then you can actually do a little fast forwarding, like Marty McFly in the future, and just ask yourself, like, is this something that I'm going to sustain long term? And if the answer is no, right, and you continue or you commit to doing it anyways, you're going to be contributing to whatever your self-esteem currently is. And, we talk about in the dictionary, the definition of self-esteem is, do I actually believe myself when I make promises to myself? Do I actually believe myself that I'm going to keep those promises? And so you have to keep in mind that, yes, you can commit to that, right? But knowing that you're not going to commit to it long term, you have to understand that you're going to be contributing to whatever your self-esteem is, whether you want to contribute to that or take away from it. That is another, it's your right to make that choice.
I think that's spot on. I think just from my own experience, and certainly so my experience of working with clients and then obviously educating coaches in the neuroscience of all this, right? My experience has shown again and again and again that most people are simply not honest with themselves at the outset of a new transformational experience. They know that they want the result, but they're not really being. I wouldn't go as far as saying that they are lying to themselves. They're just not fully disclosing. They're not fully being honest and saying, could I live like this? Do I want to do this thing? And the reality is, I think most people are engaged in a losing game.
Right. And sometimes we want it to be true. We want to be that person that would be able to stick to that rigidity or that structure. But if we get really, really real with ourselves, we can tell right away whether or not it's a winning game or a losing game. But something that just kind of percolated in my head as you were talking was, you know, this idea of I know what to do, right? And there's the difference between knowing, like logically understanding something, and then knowing it, as in this works for me, I've experienced it. And I think this is where, and this comes in time and time again, the distinction between, you know, the weight loss mentality versus the care mentality. To me, it's like the short-term mentality versus the long-term mentality. And if you look at it from a brain perspective, from a nervous system perspective, oftentimes they're completely contradicting. And so what actually, what we would know how to do, or what the weight loss, you know, industry or the common conversation in the weight loss game says, is this conversation of eat less, move more, right? And if you don't do it, then you don't want it bad enough, or you're weak-willed or unmotivated, right? Versus what does the nervous system want? The nervous system wants less is more. The nervous system wants, you know, no pain, happy brain, right? So I think, again, we have to identify, like, what's this idea of I know what to do? Is the I know what to do the weight loss know what to do? Or is it the long-term self-care, long-term care know what to do? Because then it becomes a different conversation where sometimes our information is not serving us.
Right. I agree with that completely. So let's to wrap this up for Vicky. What's a question she could be asking herself right now to kind of help her answer that question? That she kind of knows what to do when it comes to telling her clients, but she's not doing it herself. What could you ask herself?
You know, the one question I would say that could sum it up is, will I be able to do this easily and happily the rest of my life? And if the answer is no, I would recommend or invite you not to even start practicing it.
I think that's a perfect answer.
Awesome. Thank you, Leanne.
Vicky, I hope you. Oh, thank you, Dax.
Thank you,
Dax. I hope that that's answered your question, Vicky. If you've got any more questions on top of that, of course, feel free to ask them. Tripping over my own tongue here. And we're going to be back very shortly with another answer, right? So we'll finish up here, and let's go and do another.
Bye, guys.